Most people say they want mastery. They want to be elite. They want to be sharp. They want to be respected. They want to be undeniable. But very few people want the process. They want the results. They want the physique, not the training. They want the business, not the years of building. They want the confidence, not the uncomfortable repetitions. They want the recognition, not the invisible work. And that's why most people stay average. Because mastery does not come from obsession with results. It comes from obsession with process. Let's be honest. You've done it. You start something new. Gym, business, content, self-development. You're motivated. You're locked in. You imagine the outcome. But after a few weeks, reality sets in. It's repetitive. It's slow. It's boring. And the results are not dramatic. So your focus shifts. You start asking, is this working? When will I see results? Maybe I need a new strategy. Maybe I need something better. And that's where you break, not because you can't succeed, but because you're attached to outcome instead of process. Mastery doesn't reward attachment to results. It rewards obsession with repetition. The psychological trap. Your brain loves outcome. Outcome is visible. Outcome gives dopamine. Outcome gives validation. But process is invisible. Process is repetitive. Process has no applause, so your brain constantly scans for signs that it's worth it. And if it doesn't get fast proof, it looks for something else. That's why people switch workouts every month, switch business ideas every year, switch identities every season. They're chasing novelty, but mastery hates novelty. Mastery demands depth, and depth requires staying. Staying with the same movement, the same craft, the same discipline, long enough for skill to compound. Here's the uncomfortable truth. If you're constantly looking for results, you're not focused enough on the process. And if you're not focused on the process, you will never reach mastery. The gym example. You train because you want a better body. But if your focus is only the mirror, you'll quit because the mirror changes slowly. But if you fall in love with training itself, the reps, the discipline, the structure, the feeling of pushing yourself, you stay. And when you stay long enough, the body changes automatically. The person who obsesses over abs burns out. The person who obsesses over form, strength, and consistency becomes powerful. That's the difference. One chases image. The other builds skill. Mastery builds skill. Results follow skill. Work and craft. You want to be excellent at what you do, but excellence is not built by thinking about recognition. It's built by obsessing over small improvements. How can I communicate better today? How can I sharpen this skill 1% more? How can I refine this process? Most people want big breakthroughs. Masters want small refinements. They care about the detail. They care about repetition. They care about precision. And they care about it daily, not when they feel like it. Daily. Why people fail at mastery. Because they're addicted to emotion. Mastery requires emotional stability. You cannot rely on motivation. You cannot rely on hype. You cannot rely on inspiration. You must rely on structure. Most people don't fail because they're incapable. They fail because they can't handle boredom. They can't handle slow progress. They can't handle invisible growth, so they quit before depth forms. They stay surface level at everything, and surface level effort produces surface level results. Identity shift. If you want mastery, your identity must change. You must stop seeing yourself as someone who chases outcomes. You must start seeing yourself as someone who builds systems, a builder, a craftsman, a long-term constructor. When you see yourself as a builder, you don't panic when progress is slow. You understand the blueprint. You understand foundations take time. You understand repetition is part of the design. You stop reacting emotionally. You start executing structurally. That's maturity. And maturity is power. The relationship parallel. Let's talk relationships. You want a strong relationship, but strength doesn't come from dramatic moments. It comes from daily behaviors, communication, respect, presence, consistency. If you only focus on big milestones, anniversaries, vacations, big gestures, you miss the foundation. Mastery in relationships is built in daily attention, daily effort, daily care, process. The same rule applies everywhere. Health, career, business, mindset, identity. Mastery demands obsession with the boring details. The compounding effect. The person who trains for 5 years without stopping looks different, not because they had better genetics, but because they respected repetition. The person who writes daily for 5 years writes differently, not because they were born gifted, but because they refine the process. The person who invests consistently for 5 years builds stability, not because they got lucky, but because they trusted compounding. Compounding rewards obsession with process. It punishes impatience. Practical system, process over outcome. Here's how you shift. Step 1, define your process, not your goal, your process. If you want to build strength, define your weekly training structure. If you want to grow a business, define daily execution blocks. If you want to improve communication, define daily practice. Process must be specific. Step 2, track behavior, not results. Did you execute today? Yes or no? Stop obsessing over outcome metrics daily. Measure input. Outcome is delayed. Input is controllable. Step 3, remove emotional attachment to short-term fluctuations. Some days feel strong, some days feel weak. Stay anyway. That's obsession, not unhealthy obsession, disciplined obsession, the kind that builds identity. Step 4, improve 1% weekly. Refine, adjust, sharpen. Masters don't reinvent constantly, they refine constantly. Reflection pause. Ask yourself, am I obsessed with the result or the process? Do I enjoy the daily work or just the imagined outcome? Would I still show up if nobody ever praised me? Would I still train if nobody noticed? Would I still build if it stayed invisible for years? Your answers reveal your level of commitment, and commitment determines mastery. Challenge the excuse. You might say, but I want results. Of course you do. Everyone does. But results are side effects. They are not targets. Targets guide direction. Process builds reality. If you focus only on targets, you live in anxiety. If you focus on process, you live in execution. Execution creates confidence. Confidence creates calm. Calm creates longevity. Longevity creates mastery. Long-term self-construction. This channel is about construction. Construction is repetitive. You don't lay one brick and expect a house. You lay thousands, carefully, consistently. You don't panic halfway through the build. You trust the plan. You trust the blueprint. You trust the repetition. That's what mastery looks like. Not flashy, not dramatic, structured, intentional, unshakable. Emotional control. Mastery requires emotional control because there will be days when you feel behind, days when progress feels slow, days when doubt whispers. If you react emotionally, you quit. If you respond structurally, you stay. Staying is rare, that's why mastery is rare. Who you become. When you obsess over process, something shifts inside you. You stop rushing, you stop comparing, you stop reacting. You become steady, focused, grounded. You respect repetition, you trust time, you develop patience. And patience is strength. You no longer chase shortcuts. You build foundations. You don't look for hacks, you refine systems. You become someone reliable. Reliable to yourself, reliable to your craft, reliable to your standards. And reliability builds self-trust. Self-trust builds power. Final reflection. Imagine two people. One chases outcomes, switches constantly, seeks validation, burns out. The other obsesses over daily process, shows up quietly, refines slowly, stays patient. 5 years later, who is stronger? Who is sharper? Who is undeniable? Mastery doesn't happen loudly, it happens quietly. through repetition, through discipline, through obsession with the daily work. Stop chasing results. Start respecting process. Because when you respect process long enough, results become inevitable. And when you build long enough, mastery becomes identity. Not something you hope for, something you are. You don't reach mastery by wanting it. You reach mastery by repeating the process long after excitement fades. So shift your focus. Fall in love with the reps, the details, and the structure, the repetition. Because identity is not built in moments of motivation, it is built in moments of discipline. And the person who obsesses over process wins, not because they are lucky, but because they stayed. And staying is power. Become the person who respects process more than applause. Because mastery is not an event, it is a lifestyle. And the moment you commit to the process, fully, patiently, consistently, you stop chasing success and you start constructing it, brick by brick, day by day, year by year, until mastery is no longer a goal. It is who you are.